Welcome to Mpower Radio Show. This is Linda Ballesteros, and I am your host today. Thanks so much for joining me. I really am honored when you take time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes with me. And, you know, we all know as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, as small business owners, we're so much in demand that, and we're pulled in so many different directions, that sometimes we need to sit down, take a breath, and just kind of give yourself a few minutes. And I appreciate it when you spend those few minutes with me. I'm very honored. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and check out our website where we have a list of all of our archive shows that you can listen to them in case you miss any of them. You can listen to the archive shows. And that website is mpowerradioshow.com, and that's the letter M, the word power, radioshow.com. If you have any suggestions of topics, if there's anyone in particular that, or even yourself, that you would like to be on the radio show and share some of your area of expertise with our listeners, be sure to email me. I love hearing from our listeners. Please keep that email coming in, and that's empowerradioshow@gmail.com. That's the letter M, the word power, radioshow@gmail.com. Well, I tell you, folks, we're in for a really big treat today, and I am sure that everyone has heard of the law of attraction. You know, since The Secret came out, that really exploded that term. Many people had never heard of it before, had never heard of the law of attraction or any of the universal laws before, so this kind of brought it to a forefront. But today's guest is Dr. Michael Perlman, and he has created something that I think you're going to find very interesting. Dr. Perlman is a well-known Boston area psychiatrist, and he's a personal life strategist whose focus is on the spiritual side of addictions, which is very interesting. We don't normally think of those two things together, spirituality and addiction. He has dedicated his professional practice to helping others find their way through the whirlwind of the thoughts about their lives to take charge of their destiny. Healing and learning and creating are different aspects of the creative process provided by the law of attraction journaling, which is something that Dr. Perlman is going to be talking about today. And so I think you're going to really want to take notes. So if you don't have your pen and paper handy, be sure to do so. So I'd like for you to help me welcome Dr. Michael Perlman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be on the show, Linda.
I'm so glad you're here. As I mentioned, would you like for me to refer to you as Dr. Perlman or Michael?
Michael is fine. My kids call me Dad, but be my guest. I'm perfectly comfortable.
Okay. Very good, Michael. Well, you know, as I said earlier, a lot of people were introduced to the law of attraction through the movie The Secret. Now, of course, it has been in existence well before the movie, but it brought it to people's attention, and they started thinking that maybe they have some influence on what happens in their life. But what I love is that you have created a tool to help them with that. So for those that are listening, let's talk just a little bit about what the law of attraction is and exactly what that means.
In its simplest form, and we chose it because it is simple and very understandable, that you're experiencing what you're thinking about, whether wanted or unwanted. That comes from, well, thousands of years ago, seek and you'll find, and even earlier, but James Allen wrote, you are what you think about. And then the turn of the century, some great speakers were sort of repackaged as The Secret. But it's no secret. what is secretive about it is very few people understand how to do it or get it. But the secret, and all the teachers have done a great deal of good work bringing people to some consciousness that they are experiencing what they think about, and they're attracting what they've been thinking about. So if we could simply reframe that, let's say think positive things or change our thinking, we would get somewhere. Now, they're absolutely right. But it's a much deeper problem than superficially changing this thought or that thought. You have to bring your body, mind, and soul to the process, and that's what the journaling will help you clarify.
Now, when we think of the law of attraction, and that you attract what you think about, is that a spiritual process, or is that a religious process? Can you help me a little bit with clarifying that?
Well, again, religious and spiritual are thoughts and ideas, but they are unique to every beholder of the thought or idea. I would simply say, yes, it's spiritual, yes, it has some religious overtones. However, more especially, it's about awakening. It's about accessing being conscious and present, fully present in life, so that you can experience what you're experiencing and then reframe it, work with it, handle it in a way that meets your heart-centered values. So if that's spiritual, if that's religious, I think they're all tied in there. But at the end of the day, one likes to feel good about where one is in life. Are they living from the inside out? In other words, they're taking in information, organizing it, sorting it, but they're really not particularly at the effect of things. For example, when you were asking me how I like to be called, and it was as though I don't care. In other words, I don't not care that people are comfortable addressing me, but the form of address is of indifference, if that makes sense. In other words, you can call me a bad name or a good name, and that's all fine. So it's learning how to take things with equanimity or calmness, as opposed to being at the effect of the living at the outside in. In other words, people, places, things, the weather have you in a constant turmoil, and they take you over. So is it spiritual if you're less at the effect of people, places, and things, and you experience serenity? Or is it soul? Or is it the presence of God in your life? I don't know. You decide. You tell me. But I do know there is a peace and a sense of presence that is a part of our life, but very few access it.
And does that happen when we are more aware of our emotions? Does the emotions drive some of that you're, some of the negative things that you're talking about? Like if I decided to call you, this is a man, and it offended you because you spent many years becoming a doctor, well, that's an emotional reaction. Do you think that that drives something?
Exactly. That be coming from my ego or my identity that you'd be tampering with, God forbid. But when you get to appreciate that the ego, the conditioned being, is simply the way we form our social, economic presentation in life, but it's a fictional character. It really doesn't exist. We are, to the extent it exists in the physical form, it's of a temporary nature. And if we appreciate that, we can have a sense of humility about it, a sense of humor about it. And we can play. I can play as a doctor or as a man or this one or that one, but I don't have to take it all that seriously.
Now, is the law of attraction a philosophy or a concept that you actually grew up with, or is it something that you embraced later in life?
Well, that's a very good question. I think all my life, as a child, I was supported by very caring and loving people, but they were very neurotic and driven, and I always felt a sense of discomfort with this or that. I could appreciate some of the nice things, but I always had a sense of restlessness or discomfort, and I did have an ability to sort of flow above things, but it was not easy, and as life pulled at you, and I didn't get this clarity overnight. But apropos of law of attraction, it simply is a vehicle that helps people separate out the experiences of those things they'd like to attract versus those things they want less of, they don't want, they feel are uncomfortable in their lives. And it's a nice shorthand to get a little deeper and to recognize that we have two streams of being in life. One is a soul, heart-centered consciousness of being, that we are in essence connected to a greater eternity, if you like, a greater universe of being. And yet we also have this physical form that is limited and conditioned on our environment, our genetics, if you like. And that is a very fleeting experience. Even if you live to be 120, it's fleeting in the scheme of things. And the more we can walk and chew gum, appreciate the distinctions between those states of being, those two dimensions, or structures, if you like, the structure of the heart, when you know who you are and what you are here to be of service about, and on the other hand, you can appreciate and have some compassion for the physical form, and be respectful and appreciative, and use that as a guidance. You see, then you are more equipped to work effectively and speak effectively in the physical world and attract the desires that you truly have at a heart's level. But it's simply the language of law of attraction. Once it's understood on that really deep level, you start to open up the promise of law of attraction.
So, talking about that, can you maybe give our listeners an example of a time where maybe you used the law of attraction or were more aware of the law of attraction, and how the results of that would have been different if you had not?
Well, again, I probably didn't know it formally as law of attraction, but through my life, I would practice a form of meditatio a Dei. What that is simply I'd read or vibrate or try to understand those thoughts, people, teachers, writers that would speak with a higher vibration. I knew they were speaking something that was not accessible to me, and it was very attracting, and I was very compelled to explore it, even meditate it, even fake it. So I would write down various sayings of people and meditate and try to capture what that felt like. And then I would do the opposite. I'd try to go deeper into and journal my dreams or what was uncomfortable, and to see and feel the energy of that chaos and pain, if that makes sense. So I was always whipsawed between a sense of incompletion and things are not quite right, which drove me to look at what I felt. I like to tell people that I became a psychiatrist, which from the Greek means healer of the soul, not because of any particular love of people or wanting to help people, but I thought it was a wonderful way to learn about how to get a handle on my craziness, my anger, my frustration, my drinking too much, or whatever else I was afflicted with. And in doing so, I learned, how to diagnose, how to label, how to see it, and then interpret what would be the right language and the right action. And then eventually, as I practiced it, you see, you start to, you fake it till you make it. So I was naturally drawn to this higher vibrational thinking and being, but writing it down and clarifying the two distinctions, the fear body, the pain body, the ego, if you like, and yet the other, the more sublime expression of humanity, as a soul expression. So as I would go back and forth, it got clearer and clearer. The language came. I'd fake it till I made it, and then I could speak it, and then it came clearer. And so I hope this long monologue goes to the issue of what I did and how I did it.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about journaling, and how important is it to write it down? You know, in the law of attraction, they talk about saying the affirmations. How is it different to write it down versus just saying it out loud?
Well, I think meditating on a thought, saying it out loud, speaking it, practicing it, and writing it down are all different parts of the same process. The thing about writing it down, where I think this is a key piece, is when it is written down, you have taken out of the context of the ego's manipulations. Well, I didn't say it that way, but this is what I meant, and you kind of find that if you write down, like you're sort of taking notes. So what did you say? Did you mean this? Did you not? Like you're like an attorney cross-examining a witness, you see?
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to get at what is it you meant, what is it you felt, what was it, and then finally at some point there's a moment with what the notes are, what's taken down is, yes, that's it, that's how I felt. And that truth, small t, truth, because it might change in another day, another hour, it's not an eternal truth, but it's the truth that anchors the ego, the body-mind, the seeking mind to the page of the journal. And you then, as a conscious soul, can say, well, wait a minute, that thought, that feeling doesn't feel very good. And you can get clear that if that thought doesn't feel good, that's what's coming into my life. That's creating results and attracting what I don't want in my life. But from that point of nailing it, so to speak, literally and figuratively on the journal page, and then looking at it, you then have a moment of clarity. And in that clarity, the energy of that negative thought gets released as it gets appreciated and gets clarified. And in that quiet, you then have an opportunity to say, well, how would I like things to be? You see, you're now opening up to the voice of the soul or the heart. But only by addressing what is really in most practices the unacknowledged, unappreciated aspect of the ego. That aspect of ourselves, the shadow, the self-righteousness, the identity where we feel wounded and vulnerable, and we go all efforts to protect it, and yet at the same time we're protecting nothing substantial. And in fact, quite the opposite. We suffer more for that roundabout chasing our tails.
We're protecting something that's actually harming us in our everyday life.
We're protecting something that doesn't even exist, but we think it does. Yeah. I say that the most corrosive, damaging addiction is not money, food, drugs, sex, or rock and roll. It is self-righteousness. So when you see and write down what you feel, what you believe, your certainty, even no matter how paranoid or righteous or logical, you write it down, you start to see clearly that it is painful to hold that, to even deal with it. And you look at it with clear eyes, and it eventually gets released, so you don't feel the need to be attached to those old tapes.
So is it through this process, through your own personal process of better understanding the law of attraction and journaling, is that where the law of attraction journaling actually came from?
Well, I think it was a combination of things that I realized that what was missing in the law of attraction itself is that people weren't taught how to really get the results they wanted. And what I have added is only unless and until you take personal responsibility for what you're thinking and know that that is what is creating your experience, only then can you really get to the bottom of where your suffering comes from. Own it, claim it, feel it, and then become clear of it, and in that clarity it's very often released or on a path to being released. But then you're open up to the sky is the limit, your imagination. Well, now how would I like things to be? And what happens is the ego voice quiets down. It seems to have less a hold on you. It seems to be less important. It seems to dissipate. I often tell my patients or clients, you're not going to get better, I say to them, you're going to get less caught up in old preconceived notions or old beliefs or attitudes. And you'll be able to see things from a new perspective with new eyes, which are your true eyes.
Because we limit ourselves by what we believe that we can actually do. I can't imagine what my life would have been. I was in corporate and for 30 plus years, and in 2004 I left. And if I had known then that I would be doing a radio show and speaking to you who is across the country, I probably would have told you that you either were on medication or should have been on medication, because there's no way that was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So I think we limit ourselves just by thinking we can't do it. So does this journaling, it just sounds, Michael, that this journaling helps you to be more receptive to some of the creative thoughts that may be firing off, but we choose to ignore them.
You know, absolutely. I was astounded, and it still comes as a shock to me, almost catches my breath, how people are so much more able to be accepting of their plight, their trauma, this thing and that thing and this wrong with them and their diagnosis, or this situation or marital, work, financial relationship, and they are more comfortable in that rather than take that step back and to say, well, okay, how would you like things to be? What would you like to have in your life? What would you imagine would be an ideal scenario to engage in your dance over the next half of your life? And it's though the ego, which they're identified with, shuts down. It freezes. It has no answer.
Right.
Because any answer referable to that desire, the heart-centered desire, the vision, absolutely is the death knell of the ego. And it is self-limiting. So that's why we have to take a little step at a time to look at this negative thought and that until the user, the fellow human being, gets comfortable to really see the source of his or her discomfort. Is this fictional character? And then also to start to become familiar with the water of the spirituality, of just beingness. Again, it doesn't need any label. It just, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. It's like someone who's afraid to go into the water, you see? But they put a little toe in and then another little toe, and then gradually they maybe get to put their head underwater, and then they're off and playing, diving, jumping, you see, celebrating. And that's what it's akin to. A little camper.
Before we get into, because I want to hear more about the journaling that you offer on your website for absolutely free. For those that are listening right now, how would they find out more information about you, Michael, and the law of attraction journaling, and how would they get in touch with you if they're thinking, oh my goodness, that's exactly what's been missing?
Well, it is a path, and to awaken to what your truth is, your highest vibrations, what you desire, whatever the words you use, call it the divine, call it God, and to understand what your real purpose is in here, what lights you up. And on the other hand, also to start to see the darkness, the old tapes that are holding you back, and as they become clearer, they lessen. Our program is called Law of Attraction Journaling, lawofattractionjournaling.com, and it is a free online confidential journaling program. You have your own Law of Attraction journal. It's unique and confidential to you. It's completely encrypted. We have no idea of accessing anything on there. And then we also have a coaching Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Boston time, and we offer an hour of coaching to discuss people's experience and have some little tutorials, but we like to hear how people are doing with it. And there's plenty of information, downloads, and a starting guide to get you started. We have over 2,100 members on our Facebook community, so we're growing. And we want to, really what we want to do, not only to offer something, but we truly want to learn how best to present this so people can become more comfortable and more comfortably guided to reveal that which is not wanted in their lives, which is their unhappiness or grief or sadness. Or it can be simply, in a practical business terms, what are the obstacles? What is the issue with their own challenges in business? And then juxtapose it with a clearer view of how they love things to be. And once they're clear of the problem and the solution, then their steps, their action steps, become much more effortless and reasonable and intuitive. And the river of life flows with them, and they're carried with it, expanding their own ability to create value in the physical world.
So again, folks, the website is lawofattractionjournaling.com. And Michael, can they reach you through the website as well?
Yes, you can through the Facebook community. I answer people and I respond to the Facebook. We have a group, Facebook page, and then the group. But we're always working with the people in the group because they've selected to join the group and join the journal, have the journal, and when they log in or sign up for the journal, then they're on our list to be notified of our seminars or any other materials, the blogs, interviews, and so forth. And anyone who has a question, we answer it, and we try to help them. As I was attempting to say before, we're also learning how best to make this user-friendly for people so they can feel comfortable getting into the water, so to speak, of Law of Attraction journaling, to look at and stabilize what's working in their lives and what isn't, and find a way to make it a playful, delightful journey.
Let me ask you that what I see happening sometimes is that it's very easy for us to accept, oh, this is just the way it is. This is, this is just my plight in life.
Yeah.
Well,
what a short
life
change.
sucks and then you die.
Yeah. Well, what a short changing of themselves. It's as though it's a sort of a circular firing squad, how they've left themselves to the depredation of that minimalist, nihilistic thinking. And it's sad. I mean, one feels sad for them. Once they lift their heads and heart up beyond their ego-centered thinking, a whole world opens up. Actually, their truth opens up. They live the world from a different consciousness. I would say people like that are like Helen Keller, who's deaf and blind and was like a feral animal until she was slowly coaxed into a consciousness through the imprinting of the sign language on her hand and the faucet of water, and then the whole world opened up. And everyone has that ability. The world is there waiting for you to play in. But mostly, go ahead.
So sometimes it's just using a tool and getting just a small win, like you were saying with Helen Keller, just a small win.
That's right. Water, the sign of water was a pathway. Once you start to see the path forward, that this thought, whether it's a good thought or bad, and then you get to see it. Wait a minute, this is a negative, this is uncomfortable. It's not in a moral sense negative, you understand? It just doesn't feel good. And you're clear what that is. It's a particular expression of doubt or fear, and it's valid, it's accurate. And then when you're clear of it, oh my goodness, there's room for something else. Well, what is that? That's for you to paint your picture of what you'd love to have in this life, what you're meant to express and enjoy.
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
Call it
I
revelation.
love that.
But the ego is terrified at it because it loses its place, it loses its meaning. It may even lose its quote-unquote seeming life, which is just a fictional character.
Mm-hmm. Just
But you are
so
not
very
that character.
interesting. Yeah, it's just so very interesting the way that you're describing that as a character. And when when I'm sitting here listening to you, it's very, to imagine that character
Yes.
having spent its time on the stage and it's time for it to leave.
Yes, it's exactly.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Shakespeare hit it on the head. A fool, strutting and fretting its hour on the stage, signifying nothing. You see, but once you see it and you make that revelation yourself, you're liberated. You enter a whole different life of being, awakening.
Just fascinating that we have the power here, but you've given us a tool by the law of attraction journaling to help us work through that. So folks, again, check out lawofattractionjournaling.com. You can sign up for a free journal, and Michael says that it's all encrypted, so he's not going to be able to see what anybody writes. So feel free to share to your heart's content and go through the process. I'd love to hear your feedback, and I know Michael would as well, in how this works for you, because we're always looking for those tools, but sometimes it's just so simple. And Michael, thank you so much for putting this together, because there again, you've made it free. We can access it via the internet. And how much simpler can that be?
Well, there you are. And I say that I'm so grateful for you, Linda, personally, and other talk show hosts and other students and followers and all the patients I've had and all the people in my life that have had to put up with me, because I've learned, how to walk this talk more and more comfortably and more, let's say, articulately, to finally be able to say what I've really wanted to say and offer.
And I think and I think another piece of that, Michael, is I think that people are now maybe educated or more open to listening, and I think that's what the movie The Secret did, is it put it in the form of entertainment, but it planted a seed. And it planted a seed so that when people like yourself, experts like yourself, speak on this, then someone can reflect, oh, it was in that movie. So I think that really did help experts like yourself.
Well, people are looking for a way to have a direct access to find meaning in their life. And that means understanding what aspect of their life is the meaning of simple survival and limited, validity. Not that it's invalid, the human experience, but it is secondary and a guide to our true essence as spiritual beings, as heart-centered beings. Call it just consciousness, if you like, and a connection to something much larger than our psychophysical drama. But we do have psychophysical dramas, and we need to be compassionate with it and listen to it and work with it. But we have the senior consciousness in the wisdom that we're able to discern, and we learn from others. We don't do it alone. We do it with our fellow travelers.
Well, speaking of that, would it be helpful for someone to go through the law of attraction journaling, maybe in a group setting, or to have a partner or a buddy to go through this?
One of the highlights to me of this work is when someone on Thursday wants to share a piece of their journal work. So we put it on the field, and then if they're dealing with a puzzle or something, or they want to get clear on something, maybe they want some ideas of what's really important for them, they're trying to find it, so they write down what their heart desires or how they'd like things to be, or perhaps they write down things that are not yet quite right in their lives, and then as they go through the journal, other people may share their empathic feedback to it. And the fact that other people are opening their heart and sharing their heart's feeling gives a courage, gives a support, and gives a sense of intuitive guidance to the others, so they get answers come faster and quicker when it's a shared process, solving a problem or opening up to a solution. So yes, the group process.
It certainly does give it a certain amount of energy in the right direction when it's coming from the heart. I love that.
Yeah, the group process.
Well, Michael, we're down to the last few minutes here, and I tell you, I'm going to ask you on the air here, can I bring you back later to continue this conversation? Because I love the fact that you have found a way and you have a tool that helps us through and better understand not just the law of attraction, but ourselves.
Yes. Yes to all the above. I'll be here if you like me and you're ready, and I'll be glad to continue.
I would love that. Well, we're down to the last 3 questions, Michael. So if you're ready for those, let's get started.
Sure. Did you? Okay. All right. I'm here for your questions. So go ahead, Linda.
Okay. So when faced with obstacles, what kept you going?
I would say it wasn't me, because if I listened to me, I just wanted to lay down or just run away or find oblivion some other way. But there was always some call it an angel, call it a spirit, call it my grandfather. It is something, although it never took those formal forms, but something I couldn't let go of, had me gripped in something much bigger than my frustration. So the question is, I don't have a clear answer. I can only say that there and then I don't have a clear answer. I can only say it was my soul, through this vehicle called Michael, absolutely needed expression. And whether I was, whatever state I was in, catatonic or psychotic or inebriated or just crazed in one way or another, the soul in me was determined to keep schlepping Michael through this next stage and the next stage. So that's the best answer I can get. It wasn't me.
So there was an energy, though, that always made itself aware to you, that kind of propped you up every time.
Absolutely. I mean, left to my own devices, I could have jumped down a hole and be happy there, but something kept pulling me forward to meet this and that, and then eventually my innate curiosity started to get the better. Well, what is this? What's going on here? And I suddenly sort of found the music. I suppose like Helen Keller kind of got the sign language and the idea of water, and then just being guided. In this case, it was, I don't know, my higher power, if you like, as opposed to Annie Sullivan, the teacher. It's the same thing.
Wow.
The divine was
And
working
do you think
through
we
Annie
all
Sullivan.
have that? Do we all have that in them?
Not only do we have that, Linda, we are that.
Yeah. That's a pretty big thought there, Michael, that we are that.
It's getting beyond the thought, Linda, to the knowing of that. That's what the journal is. It's fundamentally attempting you to see, that you are not those thoughts, those feelings, those fears. They're a valuable tool of the human experience as your guide, but once you open up to the splendor, the beauty of who and what you really are, and then those disembodied thoughts are knowing, you're in a whole different dimension. You're not talking like Michael. I don't know who the hell is talking through me, but you see what I'm saying? But Michael is subdued.
Yeah, fascinating. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you the next question, and that is, other than a coach, who has influenced you the most?
I would say, it's funny, and as I read the questions before, and as I thought, it came to me, my dad was a great human doer. He's a successful businessman. I mean, he used to terrify me with his capacity to get things done and organize and build and produce and in so many ways. And I always felt, kind of shaking in his presence. But the real person was a person that I didn't fully understand on an intellectual level, but an emotional heart center, was my grandfather, who would pull me aside and would want to teach me about the meaning of God, the realization of the divine revelation as part of my life and part of my history and my tradition. And slowly would lead me to do this and that, taught me some of the Hebrew traditions and the meaning of the words and the meaning of the story of creation. And I sat there in his room, and it was very quiet, and I would listen. I adored him, and he adored me, but he wanted to charge me with something. And it was that power that I think stayed with me and carried me in great effort, in great effect, I should say, even though I went to a very human-doing path, the prodigal son path of living in the physical world and enjoying it and all of that, until at some point that just doesn't satisfy.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think that many of us, especially today's society, with all of what we see on television, when we see the over-the-top lives that some of the celebrities, and we think that is happiness, and we think that's it.
No.
But Michael, that's the farthest from it that I can imagine.
Yes, but it's not that it's wrong. We enter the dream of the physical plane life, and only by, I guess, our suffering. Sometimes we suffer, sometimes our heart breaks, or sometimes there's an intuition that draws us aside and grounds us.
I just love it. Yeah, and no one better than a grandfather to help you with that, because we always think of our grandparents being very grounded because they've been through so many of those pains in their lifetime, and they're able to come up with the cream that has kind of risen to the top.
Yes. I don't know how much time we have, but
sure, go ahead.
My grandfather was teaching me about the Hebrew traditions and lore, and he came and he said to me at one point, looking at me with his gray eyes, he said, "Michael," he said, "I want you to know that you are a Levite." And I had a chill there and then, I still do. But what he is carrying on a tradition from that time of the Exodus, about 3,500 years ago, when the Israeli tribes and the tribe of Levi was considered sort of an administrative, had a function. But from generation to generation, it carried back. And the man, he was called Honest Abe. He was such an upright character. But he told me that it was absolutely a truth, as I believed it and heard it, but the vibration of that went back through something much more than my little mind and body could handle at the time. It was an evocation to something much bigger, and it was a very profound impact on me, which took seed over some years. Knowing I was part of something more than this little life.
So do you think that there is a thought like that? Do you think there is something that happens in history and that vibration continues to where we are today?
Absolutely. We are, if we look back at our ancestors, at our life, at our teachers, the various religious teachers, spiritual teachers, philosophical teachers, whatever culture, nationality, religious software program we use, there's a vibration and a call to something greater and bigger. And all we need to do is simply open to it, as not in an intellectual way, but to feel the power of that coursing through us. And that's what the
so
journal
we don't have to
capture.
understand it. Because
it's understanding on a different level. It's a disembodied knowing. It's not intellectual on the body-mind, the conditioned mind of intellectual knowing. It's something that knowing and intellect gives way to when you absolutely have that feeling, as I talked about my grandfather saying, I believe I have the cords of memory go back and know that. Is it understanding or is just the truth for me? And everyone has that with this tribe or that family or that connection to something powerful that's always already present. If we'll ask for it, if we'll invite it in, even the inquiry, how would I like things to be? What would I like to have in my life?
Mm-hmm.
You open yourself to that vibration within you.
And it's working with your journal that can open up some of those.
Yes, exactly. In the shared dialogue, as you anchor the vibration distinction, appreciate the contrast between the human experience and those petty thoughts, but I don't mean petty to denigrate them, but when you're looking at a higher perspective, they become petty. When you're in the middle of the tank, so to speak, you're being tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail. I mean, it's pretty, grim. But as you start to look at that from a third-person perspective, you feel it, you acknowledge it, it somehow drops away to something else opening up. Even call it the space opens up to fill in with, well, how would I like to be? What would I like to have? You start listening to different vibrations, and slowly you get a more and more grounding in the essence of who and what you are, in your terms, with your own divine self-expression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. The last question I have for you here, Michael, is how has curiosity, and I think you've mentioned a little bit of that in our discussion, how has curiosity played a part in your life or in your business?
I think it became what felt better, and I think it was as simple as that I could say that. As I tell people jokingly, sort of, I'm a genius. I tell them, and they laugh. They think I'm going mad, and maybe I had, but I then say, yes, I'm a genius. I'm exquisitely genius at being aware of when I'm uncomfortable. and the appreciation of discomfort. Wait a minute, what is that? And suddenly, what do I want? And I want to shift it, change it. So as I got clearer and clearer, the curiosity of how does this person do it? What did Jesus say? What did Moses? What did Abe Lincoln say? You see, it doesn't matter. What did Buddha say? And slowly, as you meditate on that higher vibrational feeling, you open up to the higher vibration. Because the original reason is I can't stand being uncomfortable and miserable and hating myself or being angry with myself. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? And slowly, as you get clearer and open up to the higher vibration by curiosity, in other words, you want a better way. This doesn't feel right. I know there's a better way. And you stay with it, eventually that opens up and your curiosity is rewarded. And then the curiosity becomes, in a different way, you become curious as to what other people think. You return to say, okay, can you take a look at what doesn't feel good in your life? Can you get clear what that is? Can you see what that is? And then let's get curious and help people become curious of what they would love to have in their life and open that up and trust that. As they start to work with their words, the meaning of their words, the answers will come.
Do you think that curiosity allows people to get past the, this is the way life is for me? Because without questioning it, do they just
think it poses a dilemma.
Accept the handcuffs?
Yeah, I think is there a better way? How come this lady or this gentleman look at that? How do they do that? You see?
Right.
It's just simple human. Wait a minute, that seems better. Why am I not happy with this? You see? And you start to explore life. Life becomes engaging, and so in a sense, the more curious you are, the more attention you're willing to pay to life. And the more attention you start paying to life, the more attention life pays to you.
Michael, one of the reasons that I love doing this radio show is I found out later is because after doing this for so many years is that I am curious. I love to ask the questions. So I think for anyone listening out there, I'm certainly not suggesting that you go out and get a radio show and start interviewing people and asking questions, but I think what Michael's saying is just asking the questions. What did Jesus say? What did Buddha say? And how did that impact lives? And how could that impact your life? So just asking questions can allow you to open up turn on that creative side of your brain, if you will.
Yeah. What feels better? What seems better? Wait a minute. And so you start to expand. You explore. And like cream rises, like a cork held underwater starts coming up to the surface. It's your natural buoyancy through the intellect, through your asking questions, being unhappy, being dissatisfied, and then what else? What next? What else would there be? I mean, many of the great people, Neil Donald Walsh or Eckhart Tolle, asked profound questions, and then they suddenly realized, oh my God, and then their path of awakening occurred.
But it started with the question.
Yeah, I can't stand this anymore. I can't live with myself anymore. I mean, I don't know, my life's going to hell in a handbasket. Help me. Is there an answer? And somehow the answer comes.
Right. Love that, Michael. Is there any one last thing that you would like to leave our listeners with? Is there something that you want them to walk away from that, as a final thought?
Well, first, thank you, Linda. You are lovely, and what your show is in a way, I feel like it's my show. You've been such a gracious host and allowed me to share this, so I want to pay tribute to that in you. But the thing is that it is extraordinary once we start to take responsibility for what we're thinking and feeling and appreciate it, good or bad, want it or not. We start a path of opening up to, call it the divine, call it expanded consciousness, call it attracting the life we desire. It is absolutely always already available, but you have to want to, let's say you want to be freer and lighter of where you are, and you appreciate that wherever you are, however good or bad it is, it's not quite right for you, and then that starts moving you and opening you up to really look at what's going on and what you want.
Very good. So the moment someone says there's got to be something more, that's when the doors start to open just a bit.
Yes. Even a gentle question, there's got to be a better way, or what do I really want, or what do I want when I grow up, or why am I here? What's the meaning of my life? Or I just can't stand living with Michael anymore. There's so many ways of accessing this, and everyone is a unique, presentation, a unique entity to find his or her path. But the answer is there. They're not limited. You don't have to be limited by your psychophysical, your drama, your identity, your, whatever you think is the limited beliefs in your life.
Right. Michael, one more time, how can they connect with you, and how can they find out more information about the Law of Attraction journaling? Absolutely.
Thank you, Linda. Simply go online, Law of Attraction Journaling, journaling.com, and you'll see the home page, and we have a little audio video that gives some outline of what it is. And what we want you to do is take a look around it, and then in the upper right you can sign up for your free, confidential, private Law of Attraction journal. And there's plenty of prompts and information and guides, and we do have a Facebook group. You can please join that. You'll get notified of our weekly Thursday, 5 p.m. Boston time, Law of Attraction Journaling seminars, coaching seminars, to bring your questions, to if you have something you're working on in the journal, and or just be in dialogue with us through the group or any other venue that you want information and guidance how to do this. And we love your dialogue with us because we're really teaching what we're learning, how to make this more accessible to everybody. Thank
Wonderful.
you, Linda.
Thanks again, Michael. I so appreciate you being on the show today. And, folks, I tell you what you have learned today is that there is a better way. So if you woke up this morning and you weren't that excited about your day, maybe just asking yourself, I wonder why that is. Michael says if it doesn't feel good, ask the questions. I wonder why that doesn't feel real good. And he has created a product. He has created a tool that will help you work through that. So, as always, I leave you with a quote. And this is a quote that was actually on Michael's website, The Law of Attraction Journaling. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. And that's by Rumi. Thank you so much, folks, for spending a few minutes with us today. And I'd love to hear your feedback, and I'd love for you to tell me how the journaling works for you. Thanks again, and see you next time.
As we close our show today, we want you to know it's time. The time is now for you to cast off the chains of mediocrity and reach for that brass ring. The time is now for taking that giant leap to start a business. Step out of your comfort zone and become the you that you've always dreamed of being. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Mpower Radio Show. That's at MPOWERRADIOSHOW. Thank you for being with us today on the Mpower Radio Show.